Good night. Good night. Welcome again to another episode of Fortress Fitness Lifestyle Podcast. And tonight I have an amazing guest, right? Amazing guest, Miss Tini Francis Phillip. And this guest is so amazing. She has a couple caps. But tonight she's here to talk about men mental health. So before all the men jump up and say, hey, oh woman talk about men mental health, trust me, I had a sit down with Tini and she is awesome. And so let's bring Tini down. Tini, good night, good night.
Good night, Victor. Good night, everybody who's
Hey,
watching.
right. I'm so excited to have this particular podcast because when I met you, I've recognized that you're very knowledgeable on what we're going to talk about tonight. And I know you have some other caps, but we will just deal with the one that is, my friends, on work and so on. I said, look out for this one. So they're tuning in now. So Tene, um, you know, I want you to introduce yourself properly. I want you to, tell the viewers exactly, what you do when coming to actually tell the viewers everything, but tell them, what we're doing tonight, what we're talking about, because I know you do a lot of stuff. The platform is yours, and we'll take it from there.
Thank you so much, Victor, and thank you for inviting me on today to talk about men's well-being, men's mental health. I think this is such an important topic, so I'm really happy to get the opportunity to chat with you and all of your listeners about it. So, a little about me. I do wear a few hats, but the one that is most important is that I am a CPD certified life coach and mindfulness coach. And I work primarily with high level professional business executive men who really want clarity. I really help them get clarity, but also get the safety to express themselves and to explore emotions, feelings, situations, life, stress in a space that they would not normally have.
Wow. Yes, that is so well put. And what I want to ask you today is that, as a woman, what sparked your interest, your curiosity to be a men mental health, coach and really dive into, men mental. Yes, we know all over social media throughout the world is like, hey, men need the space, men need the space. And as a man myself, we do need the space, right? And I personally feel that there's not much avenue for men to really go to talk to really be let our guard down because we are actually expected, at least we believe we're expected to always be strong, always be the trying to catch this card for our family, but not feeling comfortable enough to come down to open up to someone to really talk about the things that bother us. What sparked that curiosity for you to just focus on men?
That's a very good question, and one that I get a lot because people would look at me as a woman and be like, well, why don't you focus on women's mental health? And really, I've always been interested in well being, always been interested in mental health. My background is in psychology, so I have a bachelor's degree in psychology, and then I went on to get a master's degree in development statistics. But even while doing statistics, my research was always focused on well being and mental health in relationships and in men and in these spaces, right? But what really, really sparked this interest is many years ago, I was working in the prisons on a domestic violence project, and that involved me interviewing perpetrators, male perpetrators of domestic violence. And what I found when I was doing this work is that every single man that I spoke to, every single one of them had themselves been a victim of domestic violence or child abuse or sexual assault or some sort of violence that had shaped the way that they perceived relationships, the way that they thought that they can deal with conflict, deal with their emotions. And I realized that the problem, at least in the Caribbean here, at least in Trinidad and Tobago, is not necessarily that men have this violent streak or men commit domestic violence. It's not that. It's that we have a violent society and men are exposed to violence very, very, very young. And that shapes the way that they are expected to deal with things. And it also shapes their ability to be mentally well and what that well being looks like, because it shapes the way that they can seek help, where they can seek support, where they can get the support that they really need to be a full human being, and what that support looks like. And very often it looks like, you know, you have to be a strong man. You have this specific way that you're supposed to be masculine. You're not supposed to talk about your emotions. You're not supposed to talk about these things. And then they bottle all of this up inside and it explodes. And that is where we get all the violence coming from. So I realized that there was this really big gap. And I also realized that for whatever reason, I don't know what it is, but they felt safe talking to me. And I said, you know what? If this is something that I can do, this is a space that I can hold, if this is a gap that I can fill, then I want to do that.
Well, that is a big why there, you know. And so, do you think as you exposed to that, and as a woman, right? Do you think that it is more easier to understand men in that headspace, as most of the time usually female are the receiver of a guy who have challenges with the emotion in a relationship, in a friendship, you know, in the family. So as I said, do you think that you have more insight because you are female, and as it's been deemed that women have more emotional control or intelligence than men, and they're more easier where they can sit down and talk to someone, which I think that is a proven fact than men based on how society views us. But you think as a female that it puts you in a better place or position to deal with men, as you as a female be more understanding on emotional attribute and headspace.
You know, I don't know if women are really more emotionally intelligent than men.
I
And
don't
let
know.
me
I just
explain
say,
why I'm saying that.
yeah.
Let me explain why I say that. I think that women are given the tools to
Mm.
communicate their emotions in a way that men are not. So if you look at how boys and girls are raised, a boy fall down scrapily and start to cry, he's gonna say, "Don't cry. You know, there's nothing. Brush it off. You're a boy. It's fine." But a girl, that happens to a small girl, and she will get comforted. She cries, she'll get comforted. It'll be like, okay, they're there, it's fine. We'll wipe the boo boo, we put on a plaster. The boy have to like tough it out and, and run, right? And that is how boys and girls are socialized. So from very young, girls are taught it's okay for them to cry, it's okay for them to experience their emotions, whether it is highs or lows. It is okay for them to seek comfort, to get hugs, to get that kind of support. Whereas boys are told crying is bad. You're not supposed to cry. They're conditioned to this very, very early on. So there are emotions that men are just not taught to deal with from boyhood. And when you take that into years and years and years, so let's say you get that first encounter when you're 4 or 5 years old. By the time you're 50 years old, you have all of these stories about what men are supposed to do, how men are supposed to behave, how you're supposed to deal with emotions, that you're not supposed to talk about it, that you're not supposed to feel these things. All of those things are for women. But then what happens when you do feel those things? How do you deal with it? You don't have the tools. So I think as a woman who was given the tools to deal with those things, it then makes it easier to be able to teach those tools to the men who never received them in the first place.
Well, you're correct as a man, and I think I could speak for most men. And yes, we were told growing up, not to cry. Crying is for girls. And we were told that probably not with the intent of our parents really know what it have done to us as an adult, right? But yes, I think most homes is like that, and we throughout in life as teenager into adult, we carry that with us. So now when we get family, wife, girlfriend, whatever, we don't know how to really relate when things bothering us. And it may have some companions really not, they cannot really get in our head for us to really drop that guard, that macho strong kind of way to really open up. So, and then when you look at society and safe space for men to come to have this discussion, it's very limited, if it have any at all, right? So what you're saying there, you correct, right? So what you that journey that you decide to go on is a long list of men I know, and majority of men don't have that. And once you're effective, which I know you are, because I myself had to sit down with you, right? But what I want to ask is that, apart from me, let's say a guy watching right now, and you have, how do you, make somebody you don't know who come to you feel safe to open up to you? You don't have to give the whole details because obviously you have different method for different people. But I'm saying is that, how do you make a man who, as you mentioned just now, is not in our DNA, how we grow to really open up? How do you make a guy feel a little more comfortable, I should say, not safe, comfortable, who never done it before, to say, you know what, to that point already open up now. I mean, you have a strategy and thing, but you know, what are one or two of the things that you can say that really will make a man feel safe to really say, you know what, she's all right, and spell out a few. It may take a couple sessions, but I don't know. I just
That's a
answered.
good question. No, that's a good question. It's a good question.
I
Um,
don't know.
I would answer by saying, so when we had our first sit down, we didn't really know each other. We had met briefly at TIC, but we didn't really know each other. And we just kind of sat down and started talking. I would ask, I'm kind of answering the question with a question.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
What
yeah, yeah.
made you feel safe to talk to me in that situation?
Well, I feel like I'm in a session now. All right. What I will say is that which I mentioned to you, right? It's strange because if most men experience what I experienced with you, I think it'll be easy. And I am one who I'm in that same bracket of not opening up to females or anybody when it comes to emotions, right? I'm still working towards that as any other man, right? And I'm pretty sure where I am, there's a lot most men behind me because at this I acknowledge what is happening and I'm making an effort. Yeah. But for me, to answer your question, we didn't meet for this particular reason. When we, as you mentioned, we talk about 95% of what we didn't come for to talk about in our first meeting, right? And what I recognize is that your what is your, some people call it aura, or your vibration, or just your demeanor was very, how to say it, accommodating for us to have that conversation. I spoke to you like someone I knew a while now, and it was, we went into areas that, it's like, it just, I think for men, and I use it us as an example, it's all about, you know, feeling comfortable to share or to talk about things that bothering us, or things that really affecting us in different ways. And it starts with being comfortable. Now for some people it may take 4 sessions, 5 sessions, 6 sessions, who knows, right? Because everybody have a different brain and a different mentality, and the approach to getting there. But for me, I think that you, and I think I mentioned to you back then, the other day, you know, why I said, I was surprised at taking it back when you said you're dealing with men. I was like,
Yeah.
I can see why, because it was easy for me to have a rapport with you, because to me, you have it naturally, whilst you acidify, and that's good. But I think that you hit the nail on the head by choosing to be a advocate for men mental well-being, right? Because you have the whole package of listening, being calm. He wasn't judging, and the aura around me was accommodating, and it felt safe for me to have dialogue with you about things that even I and all um, normally don't discuss. So that's my answer to you, to the question that I put to you, that they put back to me. Yeah, yeah, that's what it
Yeah,
is.
well, the reason I asked is, and thank you so much for reflecting that to me, because that is everything that you said is really what I try to do and the kind of space that I try to create. And you mentioned it might take 4 or 5 sessions. In my experience, it really doesn't take 4 or 5 sessions.
I
I
don't
don't
know.
think
I
it has
don't
ever taken 4 or 5 sessions with me. And I don't know if it is my energy, I don't know if it's my aura, I don't know if it's just what I put out into the world. But I have had people start talking to me and like revealing the deepest, darkest secrets in their lives, in the grocery store line. Um, I
know.
distinctly remember there was a time that I went to Tommy's in Eastgate. I had just gone to get some stuff in the mall, and then I said I'll just stop by Tommy's in Eastgate. And I was waiting for a friend, and I was just sitting there, and a guy sat down next to me, and somehow he started talking about this whole health crisis he had and how he was hospitalized and how difficult that was. Coaching session right on the Tommy's bar. And I'm like, oh, what is happening? My friend gets there. It's like, what is happening? Do you guys know each other? And I was like, no, we just met. And I didn't even know his name. I did not even know his name. And I don't know what it is about me that this is something that happens really, really regularly, but I have honed in on it in my coaching practice. There are a few things that I do. Listening is the biggest one. I find a lot of men just really need someone to listen to them, because in men's circles, there's a lot of talking, but there's not a lot of listening. Not a lot of active listening in the way that we would do it in a coaching session or in a container where I'm really just sitting back and I'm like, you tell me what's going on. This is your space. If you don't want to talk, then we don't have to talk. If you do want to talk, I will listen. If you want me to ask questions, I will ask. But it's really your space to create what you want to create from it, to heal what you want to heal from it, to bring what you want to bring from it. And that doesn't mean I'm not going to challenge you. I am going to challenge you. But before we get there, we're going to establish safety. We're going to know that there is no judgment here. I always say, this is your space. There's no judgment. There's nothing you can tell me that is going to make me be like, no. Of course, as a coach, there are certain things I'm mandated to do. So if I feel that you're a harm to yourself or to other people, there are certain, regulations around that. But barring that, you can say whatever you want. This is your space. There's no judgment. I'm never going to judge you. I'm never going to bring up something and throw it in your face. I am going to challenge you to be the best version of yourself, because that's what you're here for me to do. But I'm going to listen. I'm going to ask questions, and I'm going to follow your lead.
That's nice, and I think that is what men fear of feeling judged, because
Yeah.
we believe that we as men supposed to, yes, be strong, and to talk to someone about what we will consider weakness, like cry, saying struggling, whether it's mentally or you ever break up and you don't know how to deal with it. It's we just feel in our head that we're supposed to be able to deal with it because we are man, right? And don't have the tools to deal with it because we won't give the tools, as we spoke about earlier, from childhood, whereby if you need to cry, you need to cry. Men tend to bottle up things inside, and because of the inability to dissect certain parts of whatever it is, sometimes, unfortunately, some of those men do things that they shouldn't be doing, right? So that's why I am so, as I told you, when I met you, I don't know of any, there's a lot of mental health coach in Trinidad, I believe, and I have never seen any who advertise as, specifically geared towards men. and make it more even interesting a woman. So that is unique, but very, I welcome it. And as I told you, that day, that one day I met you when we spoke, I said, well, I think you are my first, and you will be my coach, because if my first session that was not a session end up being a session, it was a session like that, then you know what? I go spill all the beans, But what I will say for the viewers, guys, right? But before I ask that question, what I ask you is that since you're doing this, is there any what is the or one of the things? Because there's a lot. The most common struggles that you think men struggle with when coming to men mental health.
That's a really good question. I would say the number one struggle that I see is loneliness and isolation. That's the biggest one because, as you even mentioned, that men are not taught to reach out and seek help and seek community in that way. And even though you may have a group of friends around you, you have your boys, you have your school friends, you have your running club, you have these people, but are you really talking about the things that matter? Are you talking about the heartbreak that you just had? Are you talking about the ability, the struggles that you're feeling, the doubts that you're feeling? And a lot of times men feel more comfortable speaking to their female friends about those things than their male friends. And I see loneliness, I see isolation a lot. I see a lot of stigma when it comes to seeking help. So there are a lot of men who are in relationships where they are experiencing domestic violence. The domestic violence rates with women as perpetrators against men are severely, severely underrepresented because when the men go to the police station to report the
Hmm.
violence, they are laughed at.
Correct.
I know a man who had a stalker, a woman who was a stalker. He went to the police station to report the stalker. They laughed at him. Even some of the men who I worked with in the prison system, they even reported, well, it wasn't just me. It was a both of us would fight. And if I went to the police station and I said that, she beat me with this or she throw hot oil at me or anything like that, they would laugh at me. They would not take my report. So we have that goes into the loneliness and isolation because it's like, okay, when it reaches to the point that I am going to seek help, I'm getting laughed at. So then I can't seek help because I'm going to get laughed at. So I have to deal with it on my own. And then that feeds into all of the other things that we see. We see that in the substance abuse, men are more likely to abuse drugs and alcohol than women are because they don't have a way to deal with those emotions because they're less likely to go to therapy or go to coaching or go to the police. They also have a suicide rate that is insane. Men account for 80% of all suicides worldwide. 80%, which is insane to me. That statistic always amazes me. And in Trinidad it's higher. So they are actually 2 to about 7 times more likely than women to commit suicide because of these barriers to health seeking, this loneliness, this isolation. So those are like the most common things that I see. And they all feed into each other because you don't get to suicide right off the bat. You get there from having a long period of not being able to get help, not being able to get support, and not knowing where to turn. So that's what I see, and it's really heartbreaking sometimes when I see it.
Yes. Well, you mentioned some things there that I could relate to, and I've heard it before. One being as we partners and things, we linemen, brethren and thing, and whenever we play football in Savannah or whatever we doing, we talk about even if we linemen, we talk about all kind of things except what's going on in our personal space or what is bothering us. It's very rare a partner will come and say, I don't know how to deal with this, I am not significant other, that is rare in the men's circle, right? And that is why when men do certain things that, react to something that's bothering them after a long period of time, the same friend will say, but up to last time he was lying and he looked normal, he looked, you know what I mean? Because we keep things inside.
Exactly.
And to follow up on what you were saying about reporting, you're correct because there's this stigma if a guy were to report abuse from a female or his wife. Yes, the people in authority laugh because they say, but a big strong man like you is a man. Why did it? No, in that same instance, if that person who that male who went to do a report go back home and do something that he's not supposed to do, therefore, now the police will come and lock him up and say this and that. So, it's a short stick for for men,
Mm-hmm.
and it seems to be a long
Mm-hmm.
stick, the perception for women, and that is why you touch base on it. But whilst we're speaking about this now, that going on the percentage of that is high. So yes, the substance abuses will be higher on the men. The in everything. And this is a worldwide thing. And as I told you before when I met you, is that to my eyes, there is no safe space, there's no program. They probably are, but I don't see it, whereby it men could feel comfortable, whether it's at the national level. There's all kind of safe house for battered women. And I support it 1,000%. But nobody seeks the men. Nobody really going out to say, you know what? Let's create a space where men could come. At least give them an avenue where if they're really willing, they could come and someone will sit down and talk to them. Nobody. We just react after they don't know how to handle the situation and they do something foolish. We lock them up, put them away in prison, but that don't solve the problem because there's younger boys
Yeah.
coming up with the same issue because we who talking about this now, I hope that parents who have young boys, could look at this and say, you know what, they're correct. Because what was passed down to me, based on what you and I are speaking about now, I will want to pass it on to my boys because I know what I am dealing with as a man and what most men are dealing with. You understand? And if we find a way to deal with it, you know, it really would is men will be extinct eventually because you know women when you look at all the podcasts worldwide, we are still seeking men who emotionally intelligent and men this and men that, but who actually stretching a hand forward to say, you know what, how can we help these men and them, you know? And
Yeah.
I am so, what to say, what you're doing is so admirable. I mean, and I told you this, and I know I probably said over and over in this podcast, and when we bounce up again, because is needed so much. And a female, a bro, you can see a bro, hey, I say, yeah, we're gonna talk to this man here. But I think I say they may have male might be understanding in that profession, but I only could talk for me, and I think most men will feel comfortable talking to a female because we are different, men and women are different. And
Yeah.
talking to a female who you feel comfortable with, I think it brings more clarity for the situation because sometimes you as a female could relate to how a female react in a position or a situation that a man trying to understand and he won't, you know. And I could say this as I mentioned to you earlier on. I have a female doctor and I'm very comfortable, you know,
Mm-hmm.
things that I will allow her to do or places to check. I will feel uncomfortable with a man, me who 100% masculine, right? I will feel uncomfortable with a man, touching me in these places to do whatever test. I'm just being me, right?
Mm-hmm.
So again, for you being in that space and recognizing what you said just now there, I think that is amazing what the journey that you're on, and you may get
Yeah.
some. I'm pretty sure you may get some little criticism from one or two people. Have you got that?
Sometimes, but that's okay.
Yeah.
Anytime you're doing good in the world, you get criticism, right? So that's fine to me. I'm not bothered by the criticism, and I spent a lot of time. Of course, I mentioned the men's domestic violence and the lack of statistics, and yes, women do still account for 1 in 3 victims of domestic violence. I'm very, very aware of that, and I'm also aware that there's no one party solution. Like focusing on women's health alone is not going to make the world healthy. We also need to focus on the men's health because in the family unit, if the father is not healthy, the children are not going to be healthy either. If the mother isn't healthy, the children aren't going to be healthy either. So we do really need to focus on both of these aspects, and to really make a healthy society, because we can't really function without the other. And I think that's something that gets lost sometimes in social media, because it's like we'll focus on this one group, and if we fix this group then everything's fine. But then we have a lot of men going to the Andrew Tate side, because they don't have the help. They're not getting what they need from the other spaces. I think there's a reason that Andrew Tate is so popular. There's a reason that Jordan Peterson is so popular. And it's because they are speaking to these men who feel like they don't have somewhere to go and who don't feel heard. And I don't think that casting them aside, calling them incels, calling them the manosphere, like, I don't think that's helpful. I think we really need to create a space where men and women can feel safe together, and we need to repair that safety. And that's kind of what I'm trying to do.
And that's excellent. And so I'm going to be a certain way now, and I know you're gonna laugh, but how about what this woman now who's saying this worldwide? We don't need no man. I can handle my story myself, right? We can handle the stories myself, and that's not true. That thing that's throughout,
Mhm.
And yes, it might be a bad relationship, whatever. But I think it's social media, pushing that whereby, there's advocate for women to, you don't need a man now, once you're doing it, this, you're doing that. And it's ironic because you mentioned just now, which you correct, children need both parents, right? And when either one say, well, you don't need the other, then they'll be missing something. A child, male or female, will be missing something in the sense of if one party is not there or not active in the children life, and one saying, well, I don't need him or her, I think that child or child will grow up, as a disadvantage, because that is not the way it's supposed to be. Because man and woman bring something unique to a child life. That's what
I
I that's
wanna
what I think.
I think it's a good question about, the narratives that we're seeing women say in the world. And I think those are coming from a real place, right? I'm not going to sit here and say it's not coming from a real place. It is. So it's coming from a place where we live in a patriarchal society, we live in a misogynistic society. Like, those are the rules of the land. We live in a capitalistic society, those are the rules of the land. That's what we live in. And I think that whole I don't need a man, I don't need
Hmm.
this, I can handle it all of myself, is a reaction to that society that we live in, is a reaction to women feeling underrepresented, their needs being undervalued, for them being underserved. And that is where a lot of the focus of feminism has come from, because women did not have certain rights. Women are still making cents on the dollar. And I believe in equal pay for equal work, like 100%. And there are very real ways that women have been disadvantaged in the societies that we live in, and that men as a whole have not shown up to really help women in that way because of how the society has been constructed. So I really think that is where that comes from. It comes from a place of pain, it comes from a place of hurt, it comes from a place of trauma, and of not wanting to go through that again. And I also see men saying, well, I don't want a relationship because I don't want all of that drama. I don't want to deal with all of that. And that also comes from a place of pain and hurt and trauma, because we are judging the future and the present by what happened in the past, and there's no healing happening between men and women. So, what is happening is fragmentation. We are also having a lot of things from society is telling us. So, I think in one of our meetings, we talked about how there's this narrative that black men like white women, or black women don't like black women, black men don't like black women. But that's not even true, because when you look at the statistics, the majority of Black men marry Black women. The majority of high performing, high earning executive level Black men still marry Black women. So this narrative that we're getting is really coming from people who are hurt, from people who are in pain, from people who have experienced trauma, and it's being amplified by the media, and it is causing fragmentation between our men and women
Hmm.
in society.
Hmm. I agree with you, and yes, some men. I always equate it to some men and some women in the sense of a small percentage in the sense of who not stepping up to the plate in the sense of being a father, being a man, or whatever the case is. And you're correct because most of the time, when there's a toxic man or a woman who being a particular way, they're reacting to something in the past that happened to them. And you're correct. You're so correct. And but the question is how we go forward because you have the advocate for men, strong advocate, as I mentioned, some of the names, whether it's Andrew Jordan, right? And
Mhm.
they're actually advocating for the younger men, because I listen to those programs, to step up to be men, to grab the bull by the horn. No, that is not bad, right? It's just that it has to be guided because some men will take that into this and say, you know what, you know, in the relationship, and you end up with some problems, right? No different to
Yes.
the feminists and them who say, you know what, I don't need men and this and that. And da, 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 da. That is what has caused the problem because those people who are on the front line reacting to hurt, and unfortunately, they are the voice for many, right? And that is what is
Yeah.
scary. That is what is scary. So that's why we need. That's what I'm saying, and that was important for you as a female. It's broader than just you, just advocating for men as a professional mental health coach. That is bigger than that for men, because there seem to be on social media this rivalry between men and women in a sense, who need who, and who submitting, who
Mm-hmm.
not submitting. There's a lot of podcasts away. I mean, you and I probably see them on social media, and is this there seem to be who right and who wrong, and who's supposed to
Yeah.
be the leader, who's supposed to be, there's a lot, and a lot of younger people are, holding strong to a narrative based on who. It's just like your favorite movie star or your favorite athlete. You will support them, and if they're saying just like a pastor or a leader, politician, no different. If you have a someone who you really like or you support in whatever field, if they're preaching a false narrative, you will not, the message will get distorted, and you following the person, and that is the problem. So your
Right.
your journey,
Exactly.
your journey, the way I see it is that, hey, it's not about we fighting each other, who wrong, who right. I'm head, you not, and who's tail and all of that. Lead and fall, all of that. It's not about that. It's about we sitting together, man and woman, understanding that we are different, you know, and how can we support each other, whereby I letting you
Yeah.
feel a certain way, you let me feel a certain way. I could come and sit down and say, you know what, wife, girlfriend, husband, boyfriend, this bothering me. Whether it's the way you speak to me, the way, whatever the case is, those are the conversations that happening in the relationship. And I know of a couple people, well, what you mentioned earlier on, in a relationship, I cannot talk to the wife or husband
They
because
can't
of,
speak to them.
yeah, they can't. I know about that. I heard about
You're
that.
so
I
right.
said, yeah.
You're so, so right. And I have so many men who come to me and tell me the same thing. Like, I can't talk to my wife about this. I can't talk to my girlfriend about this. I can't talk to my fiance about this. And my answer is always, why not? And it's usually some variation of, I don't want to be judged. I don't want this to be brought back up and used against me. And there's just a fundamental misunderstanding of what communication needs to look like in these relationships.
Yes.
And you're very right that they on social media people fighting is like the women against the men and the this ones against the
Yeah.
that ones and the liberals against the
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
everybody's fighting. And I think that's the problem with social media. It has created a situation, and it's good because more and more people have platforms and ability to speak and share their opinions. But the problem is that anybody can share their opinions, and that doesn't mean that the opinion's right.
Yes,
And
yes, yes,
everybody
yes.
can say whatever it is that they want to say. There are a lot of people who not have no training, no credentials, no learning, no experience, and saying whatever they want, and people are listening, and they have big followings. So that's a problem with social media. But I will give the story that I gave you when we chatted the first time. For me, I in a relationship, I do not want to be the man in the relationship. I'm not speaking for everybody else, but I like being in my feminine. I like being a woman in a relationship. I don't want to lift nothing. I don't want to take care of the car or the outside of the house. I don't want to do all of that. I don't want to do those things. And I remember having a discussion with my partner, and he was talking about an argument that we had had before. And he's like, well, I didn't know that you wanted to talk about this. And we don't argue a lot, we just have discussions. And I said, listen, you like to be a man, right? You like to be a strong, rational, logical man. He said, yes. I said, great. Well, then I like being a woman, and I like being irrational and emotional. So you need to
Yeah.
let
So
me be irrational and emotional. And you could be logical and you could do your thing, and I could be emotional, and you just have to like embrace my emotions. That's all I want. I don't need you to be emotional. You you could be rational. It's fine. And that kind of conversation is not one that is often had in relationships. That like, I don't want to have to do this. It's okay. It's okay for you to have a hard day and come and tell me about your day, and we talk about it. It's okay. I'm not going to bring that back up. And we really need to have this healing. It's really about healing. It's about coming together rather than coming apart. Because if you let social media into your relationship, it can pull you apart. And that's not what I want to do.
yeah, and the next question I was going to ask you is, but you sort of answer it, and I like how you answered, which is the explanation you give in your personal space, whereby
Hmm.
how was working with as you working with men change your perspective in relationship and communication with men, right? So you mentioned just now about your significant other, and it's like, hey, I want to be a female, all in my female mood, whereby, hey, acting erratic, and however something, and that's so amazing because once your partner have a sense of humor, it makes sense. You don't have to dig deep in that. That's self-explained right there. So if I say, but why you acting up
Hmm.
so this, and he said, I'm a female, I'm entitled to it. Hey, you know what? I don't go laugh because that is where you are. That's female, right? And if I'm all grunty and hey, I'm a man, right? I'm entitled to just sometimes
Hmm.
nothing, just act, you know, just hey, brunt. We brunt at the edge, But once you understand that, right, and I think you can have an excellent relationship. And you said it there, and I think most relationship lacking exactly what you know said there. See what you know said there, and it's amazing that you could mention that on air about an example of how your personal space is, and you're open to tell your partner. And I think in a lot of relationship, males and females need to be open to their partner and say, you know what, I'm a guy. Sometimes I will probably just you know just engage because I'm a guy. But babe, you're a female, and all right, I understand what you're saying. And I think too, as we're talking about this, our ego as men sometimes is getting hold of us, and we forget that, hey, that's my person, and she would know because that's more on the feminine side. Because I might say, no, babe, yeah, I want to paint this room green, and she gonna say, you're mad. and she'll give me some more color scheme thing, and because you all may have eyes, most women have the eyes for the decor, and I don't using this, right? And I should say, you know what? That's your role. If that's what you want, babe, that's how it is. You see, everybody want to be, men want to be right more than allowing the woman to be feminine, and women, some women, not all, want to be masculine and not allowing the partner to be masculine in the masculinity. And you said it perfect. And it's not that I am better than you, better than me. I was designed to be a man and act, or man is act. And you was designed and created to be a female, a woman, to act how women act. And that's why I glad when you mentioned I want to be a female in a relationship. I don't want to wash no car. I don't want to jack up no tire. I respect that. I understand. You shut up, hey babe. Hey, but car shut up, where you? And I jack up no tire, say better come. I like that.
Yeah.
That's cool. We need that kind of advice and coaching in a relationship now, not just men. I think it's healthy when a man and a woman could go to for therapy and have like this conversation you and I are having. And I think that could bring a lot of clarity and actually solve problem that most relationships have right now, whereby you and I talked earlier on that men, the communication so poor that I can't tell you I have a problem. I come home and I can't tell you, girl, today was tough and my boss and this and that, or some staff there, because we don't have that rapport. And something bothering you as a woman, and you're not comfortable because the space is not really calm where I can talk to my husband or my boyfriend about my day, which is on the feminine side, maybe a next female who upset you, piss you off on the job, but I come home grunting and angry, bring home the work with me and grunting. I mean, you're not feeling that, that space or comfortable to come and say, babe, so happened today. And that is why a lot of relationship now, I humbly believe, this is my opinion, all relationship, there's a lot of relationship not ending based on infidelity, it's just lack of communication, right? Infidelity is one part of it, but there's sometimes, what, I can stand this person. I heard it before. She's annoying. I can talk to her. I can talk to him. Every time I open my mouth, she always right. He always right. I've heard that many times, just like colleagues and friends and things on work. You know what? I take an break. Me, I just come home. I go to my bedroom. I close my door and I sleep. Where that really is lead, I don't know, but that will never lead, in my humble opinion, to
It's not
anything
gonna
good.
go anywhere good. No, no, it's not. You're so right. And I want to bring back something that you said earlier. You said, men can sometimes be in their ego and they want to think, okay, well, I'm right about this. And then women, on the other hand, a lot of women haven't been hurt or haven't been experienced, they have to be single parents or like, have men who leave them and not committed, that sort of thing, and then they have to be in the masculine. And then when they're trying to come together, the men want to be right, the women want to be right, nobody's talking to each other. And it reminds me, I'll draw another reference to my own relationship. This is really early on. I said, and this is maybe the reason why we don't argue very often. I told him, I just asked a question because I had said something, and the way he reacted, I sat down and
Mm.
I said, why do you view communication through the lens of conflict? And he
Mm.
just stopped. And he said, what do you mean? And I said, well, I was just commenting on something, but you took it as if I was criticizing you. And I wasn't. We're not arguing. We're not debating. I'm not angry. I cool. I'm vibing. If we just talking. But immediately that switch happened when I asked that question. So why is it that comes through as conflict? And he didn't answer me immediately. He came back and he answered me another time. But that one question just stopped everything in its track because that could have escalated into a full blown argument.
Yeah.
But because I had the emotional awareness to be like, what's going on here? And then he had the respect and love for me to not be like, what she asked me this question for, to actually take it away and think about it. That really changed the way that we communicate with each other. And that is missing in a lot of relationships. because a lot of times the woman will ask a question because that's how women communicate. We want to know. We want to know how was when we ask how was your day. We don't want to hear good. We want to hear the story. We want to hear
Yes,
what happened at work. Who get you vexed? You know. And a lot of men will be like, "What she asking me all that question for? Why she want to know my business? Because she
yes, yes,
cares.
yes,
Because she cares, and that is how she shows that she cares." And then
yes.
conversely, if the man don't really want to talk, maybe now is not the time to pressure him into talking. At the same time, men do need to learn to open up. I do think it's important that men understand how to communicate their emotions. There's a lot of healing there to happen. I definitely think that can happen. But I also think we as women need to learn that men don't necessarily need to communicate the way that we do. And that is something that happens a lot in therapy, a lot in coaching. A lot of the healing methodologies are catered to the ways that women communicate and the emotional expression that sometimes men don't have. So we need to be able to have that give and take, that understanding. And that is the thing that's really going to heal our relationships.
And you mentioned something there. You give an example of a situation in your relationship just now there. And somebody might be watching and say, well, you're a mental health coach, you know how to deal with that. But to the average female, I think that is the challenge there, what you know mentioned there. And I like how you mentioned that, you mentioned to your significant other, there's other ways, because he probably custom operating in a state of conflict, and that is you would have come, you see, and show him a different way it can resolve. And that's amazing. But I think one of the things that is lacking today in most relationships is just taking 5 seconds to breathe and say, you know what, you meet this person, you don't know them before, they will have trauma, they will have the custom dealing with things, as you mentioned, the word conflict. But they love this person, like this person. So when you see them act a particular way or react a particular way, you know, you should be saying no, which you said just now, you know what? There's another way, And in fact, if he loves you, care about you, I can see myself saying, I didn't say it that way to myself. I mean, I had to speak it out, but men, it's not about putting up a guard and saying, so what you answer, you call me stupid or what? You know what I mean? Because what I'm saying here, men say, people say in relationships. So I try to be
Yeah.
as real as possible. So I think that men, first of all, have to, give up their ego when coming to talking to their significant other. That said, sometimes some females can make it a little difficult. The relationship start based on how they come together. It won't, perfect. But I have learned in my journey, not on even how to do it with mental health, just life in general, that it pays to just listen. Listening is so important. I think listening is so important in all aspects, whether it's a business transaction, whether it's you go for employment, whether it's some. We are people tend to want to speak before the person talking to us finish the conversation, and most of the time, sometimes we react to half of the statement. And in a relationship, I have learned personally in relationship, there always another way. you know my way doesn't always mean that it's the right way or the only way. There always another way or another approach. It doesn't mean my way wrong sometimes, but if it's a significant other, is, what, you have a different eye. How can we, there's words I've learned, I think I mentioned to you, there's word I choose to not say as much as I can, what I've learned from on my life journey, where for myself, and understand what it means, is not to say that I can't, how can I, so in a relationship with
Mm-hmm.
someone, we have a communication problem. We should say, how can we improve? What can we do to make this communication better? What do I have? I must say to you, what can I do to make this relationship go better as a man? What would you like me to do? How would you like me to act when we have a disagreement? Whilst I may come from conflict, as you rightly said, babe, how do you want me to react? This is what I know, right? So I must
Mm-hmm.
be comfortable enough to tell you, babe, this is what I know, and you mustn't bring it as you said a word just now there. What men don't like is trade back in my face now, you know. And I know
Mm-hmm.
women like to trade back at you, to get back at you, because since I growing up small, my mother said, women's strength is their mouth, you know. And
Yeah.
men can't handle that. Most men can't handle that. And but as you rightly said earlier on, you act in your femininity, and you know what? I might be a little petty sometimes, you know, but
Yeah.
I must, yeah, I'll be a little petty sometimes, and I understand that. You explain it perfectly, and if you say that to any man that you with, I mean, he must do so. If you really care about you, just have to
He
shake your head and say, I
listen.
understand.
Listen, when I said that, he laughed so much. It wasn't
Yes,
even
you.
like there was no argument after that because it was like, what do you want to be a man? Be a man, but I want to be a woman, which means I want to be emotional and irrational sometimes. So just let me
Listen.
be. And and I think what you're talking about, the listening, the communication, the healing, all of that has to come from a place of respect, right? If it is that you
Yeah,
do not respect the person that you are with, as a man or as a woman, it's always going to be a problem. So if for some reason you are in a relationship and you realize, I don't respect this person, you're never going to treat them well because you're not going to
correct.
listen to someone that you don't respect. You're not going to prioritize someone that you don't respect. And
Yes.
sometimes, and this has happened in some of my sessions as well, sometimes we have to be honest if we don't respect the person that we're with. Sometimes the hard question that I ask is, do you respect her? And sometimes the answer is no. And if the answer is no, I do not respect this person, then why are you in this relationship?
Yeah.
Then
That was
why
my
are you
next question.
here?
Yeah.
And
Yeah. So
sometimes it's I'm afraid to be lonely. I'm afraid I'm not going to find nobody else. This is what I'm supposed to do, or with her for this long, or we have children. There's always a reason. There's
yes,
always
yes.
a reason. But it's important to find out how you really feel about this person because if you don't love and respect the person that you're with, no healing can happen. No healing can happen.
And that is what is
So we
add to the
really,
conflict.
yes, it not only does it add to the conflict, it makes it escalate. It really adds a lot of resentment there. And when there's resentment in a relationship, oh, it's hard to come back from that. It is hard to come back from a relationship where there is resentment. And what we really often need to get to the root of is if there isn't respect there, why is there not respect there? And oftentimes it's okay, this thing happened in my past, and that taught me that women are like this or men are like this. And that means that I can't trust this person. And without trust, there's no respect. You see how it spirals, right? And everything leads into something else. So, really, when I'm doing this work, we're really trying to get down to the root of what is really causing the problem. Where did it really come from? And it's not therapy. It's not therapy because when it gets to the point of bringing up like really specific trauma, I would tend to refer someone out to a therapist because it's really about clarity and purpose and direction and achieving
Hmm.
whatever goals it is that you want. But we do often have to go into like what is causing it, what is underlying, what's happening here, where did this come from? And I find so often that men are saying, I don't feel like I could be a man, and that makes me so sad.
Yeah.
Because when
That's
men can allowed to be men, women are allowed to feel safe, and then the women
mm,
can feel like women, and then the relationship becomes amazing.
yeah. And
That's my take.
yes, and that's the thing that I believe. But do you think that I know you mentioned when there's no respect, it's very hard to save a relationship, and people say, well, for the kids or with them long, which I've heard umpteen times, and that relationship will always be spiraling up and down and up and down. But do you think that based on lack of trust, based on an event that happened, respect run out the door? And do you think that if two people together and they had respect and love for each other, and one was unfaithful and happened to say verbally, "All right, I'll give you a next chance," do you think that that person who given the person the chance Do they lose some form of respect, or they just stay with them?
They
Based on
definitely lost
trust.
trust.
Yes.
They definitely lost trust. I definitely think that healing is possible after infidelity because I have seen it many times. It is
Hmm.
possible, but it takes conscious and consistent effort from both parties. I don't know if the trust ever fully returns,
Mm.
and I don't know. I don't know. That's really what I would say about that. I
Yeah.
think it depends on the two people. I think it depends on their willingness to make something work or to continue the relationship, their love for each other, and whether they really are invested in the relationship. I also think it depends on whether there's genuine remorse because a lot of times it's like, okay, well, I wouldn't do it again, and then he got and, and sleeping with
Yeah.
punches a little bit again, right? So if you're doing that, then healing is not going to be
Yeah,
possible.
yeah,
If
yeah,
it
yeah,
is, you have to be real about who you are and
yeah.
about whether it is you can really be faithful and whether it is you actually do want to be faithful for this person.
Correct.
So I
Correct.
think that's a situation by situation basis, but definitely loss of trust. Definitely.
Loss of trust, But why do, and you're correct. When respect is not there, I mean, you could tell to me if somebody really respect you based on how they treat you, right? And
Mhm.
if respect is not there, sometimes, most of the time, what the parties involved know based on how they treat them. They're always quick to argue, quick to, there's no trying to, hey, let me sit down and have a proper conversation. And I know that situation all too well, and it's hard, but the better thing to, in that situation, to me, if I recognize someone, my significant, don't respect me based on trying to hold something together, I personally would just, call it quits, because with no respect, they can't build on that, because that person will never see you as someone they really want you to lead, especially as a man. If your significant other as a man don't respect you, how can it be man that you designed to be? Because you are the lead. You have to say, babe, we're going left today, or we're going, whatever the case may be. This decision, I believe that is better for us. But if they don't respect you, you're going to have arguing and combativeness and all kind of thing. That's what I think. And I think, unfortunately, sad but true, a lot of the relationship today going through what we're now talking about,
Yes,
right?
you're very right. Very, very right. Without respect, it's gonna be really hard. It's gonna be really hard. And I agree that I personally, if there's not respect in a relationship, I would just leave. But everybody has their own things about why they wouldn't leave. Sometimes it's trauma, a lot of times it's children. When it's children, I often bring up my example because my parents were never married. My parents are both married to other people and have been for like 20 something years. And as a kid, I would have a lot of people ask me, well, don't you wish your parents were together? And I would say, absolutely not. Absolutely not. No, because they were not a good match together. They argued a lot, I think the respect was there for sure, but they just weren't compatible. They wanted different things from life. They wanted different things from like their careers and their journeys, and it just would not have been a good match. I love the fact that they were that they were separated and they went and they found people who they're compatible with. I
Yeah,
love my
yeah.
step parents. I tell people I have four parents, and it is amazing and it works. And I think we need to be honest when
Yes,
something doesn't work because we'll say,
yes.
okay, well, I'm staying for the kids, but the kids know it not working. They
Correct,
know that it's not working. And then
correct.
all you're doing is showing those kids that dysfunction is acceptable in their relationships. So
Yeah,
they're going to
yeah.
grow up and get into dysfunctional relationships and they're not going to leave. And then their children are going to see the same thing. And then we're going to
Yes,
have those generational cycles happening.
yes, and that's well said. And I'm glad it's said, because a lot of people don't believe that you can have a healthy relationship with your significant other if you have children involved and you'll separate, or your ex, as well it's called it. You can still have a good relationship, but you have to maintain the respect and come to the conclusion. You know what? We just can't do this. We're not compatible. You want to go left, I want to go right. And if we try to stay together, it will have chaos. It's happening. We have a chaos already, but we have kids involved. We love the children. I love them. You love them. Yes. Okay. Right. So let's agree to go separate ways, but have a good relationship. I see it on social media with some of these people outside there. And I also believe that if you love your children, which you should, separation shouldn't be abandonment. That's just my thing. And I believe that I sticking with that, and there's nobody could convince me differently. Look, you actually is an advocate of that, and you and I know there's the other side to that. You and I know there's the other side to that, and I often say
Absolutely.
I don't support no male friend, partner, brother, no family, nobody who's a male separate from their wife or their girlfriend or the fiance and children's involved, and they abandon the children. I don't support that. I will never support that. I will always believe and say, you know what? Doesn't matter what it was. Support your children, have a relationship with the children. If you can't have it with the parent, the wife or the husband, maintain a relationship with your children. That is what we call breaking
Absolutely.
that cycle there. So based on what I'm seeing
Absolutely.
here, yes, you are amazing as expected. There's so much topic I know we can touch base on for all the viewers. I mean, we run out of time. I know we passed that time long time, which I expected would have happened. But I want you to let the viewers know where they can get you. These men out there, I have some brethren out there. Hey, fellas, I had my session. All right, excellent. She's amazing. She's know what she's talking about, and she has that aura and that space where you just feel, you know what, you know, I can talk to this person. She's too young to be a mommy, but it's like how you look up to your how you look up to be mommy, right? That's what it is, right? So I will say before we leave, let the viewers know where they can get you, your social media or whatever. So at least, apart from me, those guys could come to me, my friends and them, but let people know where they can get you for that particular service that you provide.
Of course. You can find me on Instagram, LinkedIn, TikTok at Coach Tene. That's CoachTene. That's my handle on all my platforms. You can also check out my website, coachtene.com. And if you go to the page for men, you will see all of the services that I provide for men. I do clarity sessions, that's one-on-one, short sessions where we just talk through one issue. You come, you bring your issue, we talk. And I also have a monthly retainer for longer work if you have something that you want to work with over a period of time. So you could check those out and you can find me there.
Wow, amazing. So I want this session, unfortunately, is at the end. I know we could talk. I know you and I could talk for the whole night because we talk for some
Yes, we
hours.
could.
Yeah, so I will bring you back later on in the year, because I know we could zoom in on a particular topic because I know a lot of guys, professional guys, especially, you know, more stress and work. I myself being one of those. Sometimes we need someone who can vent and really pass the things by, balance work, balance relationship, balance, our drive to succeed in life. We just need to come down sometime and feel safe and talk to someone. So I want to thank you for this wonderful
Thank you so
session,
much.
and may God continue to bless you and endeavor. And I mean, men mental health coach, you female. I mean, I have to give you the crown. Me personally, that's me, right? Because I like what you do and you amazing at it. So have a bless. So have a blessed night. Have a wonderful weekend. I know we're gonna see sometime next week. Take care of yourself and
Yes.
continue to fly that flag of men, supporting men, and making the space, comfortable for us to come to talk to you. So have a blessed night and take care.
Thank you
And
so
again,
much.
we'll chat, right? Right. So that this session was amazing, right? So I just want to tell you guys out there that, she said where to find her. Right? I chat with her. She's amazing. Thanks to the viewers, all my friends, my co-workers, everybody, all my gym buddies, everybody. Call her, talk to her, because I know for a fact we all deal with things as men, and this is a space now. This is someone you're going to talk to, because as you all know, we don't have any outlet. This is how we feel, and we really don't have, right? So check out on social media, and you're going to book your appointment. She's not expensive. I can say that up front. She's not expensive, but it feels like home talking to her. So tune in next week again for our next session of Fortress Fitness Lifestyle Podcast. Your boy Vic here. Continue to support me on my page on social media for healthier, wealthier, spiritual, base, all around wellness. A boy Fortress Fitness Lifestyle Magazine, Fortress Fitness Podcast TT, and Fortress Fitness Holistic Approach to Wellness. So take care. See you all next week, and may God bless. Have a good night.